Good evening, spiritual warriors. Welcome to another discussion from His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami's Spiritual Warrior books. We are in Spiritual Warrior 5, Making the Mind Your Best Friend. And we're coming near the end of the chapter we've been working on, studying, discussing, hopefully meditating on, and hopefully acting on, and more hopefully applying what we've been hearing in our lives. And those who have been following us regularly now have a deeper understanding or a deeper expression of gratitude. And I tell you, we are definitely tested, challenged, as Bhakti Tirtha Swami tells us all the time. And the challenge is a qualifying test to see if we're really serious. So if you're serious about this and really want to imbibe what you've been hearing, look for your challenges and tests, because I have a challenge now that has had me meditating on this chapter and looking for an answer to access gratitude. And I'll just share with you, and then we'll go on with where we are, which is, I say, the end of the chapter before the question and answers. Of course, you know I always like to do what? A review. And sometimes I like to review about our spiritual warriorship. Oh, before I forget, tomorrow's the 13th of November. It will be 1 year since we initiated the spiritual warriorship Krishna.com live program. And Krishna's been merciful enough, that's the attitude, that's a gratitude, that it has been going this long and that there's some of you still out there. And I do appreciate those who come. And if anybody's here for the first time, welcome to Spiritual Warriorship classes discussing His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami's Spiritual Warrior books. So that's something to be grateful for. I am definitely grateful. And also, spiritual warriorship, the concept, is given to us, brought to us in the Spiritual Warrior series. It's really to help us, right? Remember, we've been through this, to become grounded in understanding who we are as spiritual beings. Spiritual being, grounded in, that's the knowledge. And it's also to help us to be able to cope with life in trying times. And in this material world, in this Kali Yuga, it is trying times. But that's why we are gaining the knowledge, so that we can cope with it. And if we're following the instructions and techniques, technologies we've been getting here, along with our reading of Bhagavad Gita, which he continuously quotes from, we'll see we're able to quote better. And we're also being helped to use the spiritual weapons that he presented and we presented here to battle the tide of depression and anxiety that's sort of pervading the world now. Remember, those weapons are love and humility and compassion and tolerance and caring. So, spiritual warriors, I wore my spiritual warrior shirt tonight because I really feel I want to be a strong spiritual warrior. There's a situation in my life right now that I'm looking for gratitude. Well, I have gratitude, but I'm looking at how to place it and feel it. Because I feel what I'm sharing with you, and I'm being challenged to feel it within myself and express it. I think I've mentioned before, I have a daughter who has cancer, and she's hasn't been doing too well the past week. In fact, I'll be traveling up to Washington, D.C. this weekend. But in preparing for this class, I said, how can I talk about an attitude of gratitude? Let me see some gratitude here. Because she says everything, a lesson in everything. You know, remember how we started the chapter is that most of us don't understand that everything rests on the Lord. Well, I'll tell you, as I contemplated gratitude in this situation, I realized I was grateful for the knowledge that I have been brought to at this time in my life, the ancient wisdom and Srila Prabhupada's books and purports, and my spiritual master, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who really opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, and has brought me to understand more what death is, what comes after death, and our relationship with the Supreme, to be able to, well, I was preparing for my own, and who knows, I don't know which direction my daughter's situation will go, but it's giving me the strength, and for that I am grateful. And I share that with you because to encourage whatever the situation is. One section we read, there's a lesson in everything. I think he says, in one sense, when we develop gratitude, we increase our appreciation of the positive aspects of our lives and give less attention to the seemingly negative aspects. And again, with me in this situation, I am endeavoring not to focus on what's happening with her material body, which is now full of cancer, but on her higher self and encouraging her to know. I just told her the other day, remember we've said you're not the body, you're a spirit soul, and we want to nurture that spirit soul. So there is a lesson in everything, but there's also, if you search and pray, the gratitude is there. So what did we cover in this as we come to the end of this chapter? Of course, remember we started out that everything rests on the Lord, huh? And of course, if we don't appreciate that and understand that, then we really get distressed when things aren't going our way. But everything is arranged by the Lord. And that was made clear by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So what did he do? He gave us what blocks the development of gratitude. Remember? One of the enemies of the mind, lack of thankfulness, excessive false ego. Okay? You remember those? I hope you have the book, Spiritual Warrior 5. And as I said, if you don't and you want to go deeper into this, Krishna.com store. You can get it there. But then, after telling us what the obstacles was, he then gave us what supports gratitude. And there again, we're being shown the duality, but if we look, we will find something to boost us up and keep us going. And the first one was selflessness. We cannot be grateful if we've got ourselves fixed only on ourselves. Recognizing the meaning of life. What is my purpose for being here? It's to know that I'm a spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme, and that my role is as a servant of His. And he reminded us that we have to remove ourselves from the center of everything. Put God in the center. And seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. Remember? Let every exchange be exciting and new. And then you can see what you are grateful about and what's working for you there. So having the proper attitude towards helping others and our devotional service. So if we're thinking of helping others, we'll see where others are and realize how much we have to be thankful for and off ourselves to help them. So I hope that review helped. There won't be a final exam, not by me, but if your consciousness has been open to what you've been getting and your desire to have this attitude and to live it and express it, and you'll see change in your life and you'll know if you've passed the exam. So tonight we're looking at access gratitude in your own lives is what he's saying to us. He says we can call on you to start accessing more gratitude in your lives. You can start by thinking of yourself less and more of others. You can also increase your gratitude by appreciating the events in your past and looking towards the future. When you do feel angry or allow the enemies of the mind to come forth, you can then immediately drag the mind back to the positive aspects of your life. So remember, when we did the quality mastery of the mind, we cannot allow the mind to run us. As he's saying, when it drifts off and tries to go, we can bring it back. That's how we do in our chanting. If you're chanting, we've said the mind likes to go wandering off, but you are in the position to bring it back to hear that holy name. And what he's saying now, that rather than allow the enemies of the mind to control you when they come forth, you immediately drag that mind back to the positive aspect of your life, which means you're seeing that. Remember, we talked about gratitude for the positive and not focusing so much on the negative, because all the mind does is accept and reject. So if you're holding the negative, it's like, oh, you want more of that, and we'll set up a wonderful situation. But if you're seeing the positive, that too will then bloom in your life. Consequently, you will draw more of Mother, Father God's mercy because you will have properly reposed your attitude in the right place. That's what thinking about God, thinking about the Lord, and you will receive that mercy. We want to look closer at this subject so that all of you can accelerate more in your spiritual lives. What does your spiritual life mean to you? Remember the questions? Let me go back. I love those questions, and I need them myself right now. Remember when he reminded us that the Lord said in Bhagavad Gita, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So if you want to forget God, he'll let you. And if you want to remember him, he'll reciprocate with you. If we really recognize God's presence everywhere, how can we not have a strong sense of gratitude? God's presence everywhere. How can we not develop gratitude if we really understand that God's mercy is greater than His law? How can we not develop gratitude if we recognize that every moment is a chance to try to solve, every moment is a chance to love the Lord and other people more? How can we not develop gratitude if we must recognize that every moment is a chance to try to love the Lord and other people more, and actually strategize to increase the quality of our service? How can we not develop gratitude after recognizing the fact that this very body in this lifetime is an opportunity to free ourselves once and all of birth, old age, disease, and death? Temporary. We're passing through and using this body as a vehicle to gain the knowledge so that we can recognize the facts and know the truth. How can we not have gratitude if we remind ourselves that the Lord is always so close, residing in our hearts, monitoring us, and waiting to be fully discovered in order to shower us with loving ecstasy? I hope you've thought about those questions. I think every week I've gone through them to stimulate my own thinking and gratitude and realization. So we continue. He says, we want to look closer at this subject so that all of you can accelerate more in your spiritual lives. Spiritual life is a simple science, but due to its simplicity, it sometimes seems complex. It does not depend on how many books we read, how many yagnas or sacrifices we perform, or how many years we've been chanting, meditating, or praying. It does not even depend on where we go, how we dress, or what we do. It mostly depends on how we think. The physical body is temporary, which means that our consciousness is more deeply connected with our real existence. It is the consciousness at the time of death that determines where the soul goes. The destination of the soul does not in any way depend on the amount of money in our bank account, the type of house we own, the quantity of sacrifices we perform, or our associates. It depends on our consciousness and attitude. No finger pointing. Your fault, you said, no, oh, I didn't like the way you look. Our consciousness. That's why he continuously reminds us. Self-evaluation, self-examination. Where are you on the spiritual path? We must transform the mind from our greatest enemy into our greatest friend. Arise, spiritual warriors, for this is our life's work. Jai Shri Krishna Pad, Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Can you read that one sentence?
Read that.
Our consciousness.
Okay.
Just that sentence.
Okay. The destination, the whole sentence, the destination of the soul does not in any way depend on the amount of money in our bank account, the type of house we own, the quantity of yagnas or sacrifices we perform, or our associates. It depends on our consciousness and attitude. We must transform the mind from our greatest enemy into our greatest friend. Okay, spiritual warriors, you're on the battlefield. Remember, we said the battlefield for spiritual warriors is consciousness. We're changing ours and we're helping others by battling the enemy of the mind. So, any questions or comments on what we have covered in this chapter, or just what we spoke on tonight? And then we'll go to questions and answers that were presented when he gave this class. Some of these questions are really quite interesting, and he gives quite in-depth answers. So, are there any comments, questions at this time? Is anybody out there at this time?
Yeah, Bhuvan Mohan is here, Bhagavad Gita is here, Kremlin.
Is that Bhagavad Gita Dasi? I know a Bhagavad Gita. I have a god sister named Bhagavad Gita in Detroit.
And who else? Kremlin, Bhagavad Gita, Adi, Bhuvan Mohan, Catherine, and Nishringa Tirtha.
Nishringa Tirtha Das. Haribol, welcome. Okay, let's look at this question. No one has a question at this time. All right, then I'll ask the question. Someone has asked the question you may have on your mind. Can you elaborate on the basic obstacles that can prevent a person from developing a good attitude? All of you have been thinking of that question. See how it comes up. This is his answer. The obstacles develop when we do not accept the Supreme Lord as our well-wisher. And I think for just a moment, stop and think about that. All of you out there, do you accept the Supreme Lord as our well-wisher? That's when obstacles arise, when we do not have that acceptance. Consequently, we will not look at events in our lives with a sense of appreciation. We have the choice to look at what we lack or to look at what we have. If we have a greater sense of appreciation, the Supreme then makes the next arrangement. who I realize some of his sentences has so much in it that sometimes I feel it could just explode. If we have greater sense of appreciation, the Supreme then makes the next arrangement. And the choice we have is to look at what we lack or look at what we have. And if we look at what we have and give thanks an attitude of gratitude, the Supreme then makes the next arrangement. Why? Because He's our well-wisher. Okay? This is, whew. We should try. And that's what being spiritual means. Understanding that, accepting that, as he said, and seeing how it's working in your life. It's a science. And it's simple, he says, we make it complex. We should try to constantly think, how can I serve the Lord? We want to always remember the Lord and never forget Him, and accept all things that are favorable to devotional service and reject all things that are unfavorable. Remember at the very beginning of this chapter, he said to us, when we have a mindset of impoverishment and fear and do not appreciate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either directly or indirectly, or do not appreciate that the Supreme Personality of Godhead either directly or indirectly arranges everything. It distracts from our ability to progress and take away from our physical and mental sense of well-being. The mindset. And here we're being reminded of that. Then we have to find out what is favorable. We can ask ourselves, does this activity help me to honor sadhus better? Will this help me situate myself more at the mercy of my guru's order and service? Will this help me think of myself less and think more of others? Will this help me become a better servant? On the other hand, we might need to ask, is this causing me to feel that I deserve or need more? We have all seen people who have a genuine handicap, but they do not accept the handicap. Although the slightest activity challenge them, they do for themselves and eagerly speak positively whenever you talk to them. They're happy about life and are pleasant to be around. However, in other cases, you may not want to be around some people who have handicaps because they simply drain you. Some people may not even have such an issue, but due to their lack of gratitude, you just find it hard to spend time with them. For instance, they might want a new car, even though they already drive a fairly new one. Or they might want a $10 million house, although they already have a $3 million house. An athlete might feel so angry that he won the silver instead of the gold in the Olympics. He simply feels miserable because of what he did not do. Another person might have wanted to corner the stock market in a certain way, but someone else got the leverage over them. Due to their fury, they practically want to commit suicide. It could help us to visit some of the villages in which people have been living quite simply generation after generation. It might shock you to see that people have a sense of happiness. They use what they have and work with a sense of community. And that rings true for me. During the years I did some traveling, mostly to Africa. And the scene is coming back. One little place I had to spend a night or two. It wasn't comfortable at all. But what I realized, in the morning, the people, they went and got their bucket of water and they bathed themselves, they got dressed, and they were sweeping the dirt in front of their little, it wasn't a hut, but the house, but not a fancy house, just a one-room place. And they made that little area so clean, and yet their clothes may have been tattered. And I realized, and they were happy, they were smiling and talking to each other. So that's the truth. Living simply and following cleanliness, being next to godliness, you and grateful for what you have. It's so wonderful. The individuals tend to support one another in an environment like that, which helps them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
This is what, and I realized when I came back to America, was that the time I stay? I think I spent a month, my daughter and I, traveling. And it was just, the people were warm and friendly no matter where you went, how little they seemed to have. They were just really happy and treated you so nicely and felt good about themselves. Although they have so little, some do not feel any type of want. However, when those same people have to deal with what they do not have, they might then lose their peace. That brings another picture back again in Africa. This was in another area. What's that place? I forgot the name. But what it was, there I was in the city. And our group was staying in a hotel. And what we saw looking out the window was like vendors, if you will. But what I understood, I think it was the women and children sitting with whatever wares they had, is that the men had left the village to come to the city to get work. And the wife and children followed, and they were miserable. They weren't smiling so happily because they were away from that family environment. So that shift makes a difference, trying to get more. And as I said, just reading this, it brings back the experience I had. When those same people have to deal with what they do not have, they might then lose their peace. If some intrusion or culturation begins to break down their way of life, sometimes the people will begin to hoard and gradually lose their natural simplicity and appreciation. We can engage in all types of worship, But if we do not have a service mentality or recognize Guru and Krishna's constant presence, we will not have much potency. Then, when we interact in society, the various distractions will simply agitate and drain us. However, if we consider ourselves to be on a mission for the Lord, the distractions will not affect us so intensely. To the degree that we think of ourselves as the experiences we will want to experience and constantly endeavor to maximize our self-pleasure.
There's a question.
However, to the degree that we position ourselves as puppets for the Lord, the enticements will not disturb us. You have a question?
Mm-hmm. Bhakti Tirtha asks, when we are placed in circumstances that we are not mentally comfortable, how do we make peace with that?
Based on what he's been saying, in circumstances that we're not mentally comfortable, we have to see, first of all, what the mind is feeding us about the circumstance, situation. Mm-hmm. What he's been telling us all along is whatever the circumstance, we need to have an attitude of gratitude. If it seems positive, our gratitude increases. If it seems negative, we're to look for the positive, or even in the negative, look for something to be thankful for, because no accidents, no coincidences. And we're just talking of the Lord being in the heart, and if we accept the Lord as our well-wisher, then that situation, circumstance is his arrangement, because he's making, it just said, the next arrangement. So we have to see why the mind is not satisfied, because what is the mind? It's just a temporary part of us, and all it does is accept and reject. It doesn't really have any knowledge. So that's why we have to have the knowledge, so we can look out and see how to make that a situation that either we look and we realize maybe something we did or said put us there, learn from that, is something to be learned, and then go on. Or if it's a situation we have to be, then we see, again, knowing, as we said, the Supreme Lord is our well-wisher. He himself says he's in our hearts, and he makes the arrangement how we can learn from everything is for a lesson, learn from the situation. And as we're learning, we'll find something to have an attitude of gratitude or appreciate. And again, what we just said, to the degree that we think of ourselves as the experiencers, we will want to experience and constantly endeavor to maximize our selfish pleasure. And we were just reminded that it's really about serving the Lord. How can I, in this situation, serve the Lord or be favorable, find something favorable here? Is that okay? Once we try to experience on our own or begin to maximize our experiences, thoughts, and feelings, we will have problems. Once we try to experience on our own, because if we've studied this teaching, we're being told we're not the doers. And the Lord is the doer through us. And where did we just read about We want to put ourselves in the position to be puppets for the Lord. Then whatever enticements or whatever will not disturb us. The body will naturally have some attraction to certain objects because the body and mind function in this way. It is natural for a boy to be attracted to a girl and for a girl to be attracted to a boy. It is natural for the mind to be attracted to all types of subtle allurements. It's natural for the mind to be attracted. Furthermore, to the degree that we identify with our physical body and the bodies of other people, the enticements will continue to lure us in. By moving ourselves out of the center and by viewing our service as part of the mission of the Guru and Lord, we can move around in a mood of detachment. So you don't get attached to that circumstance, that situation. Because all the mind is doing is what the mind naturally does, is to be attracted to all kinds of subtle allurements, as he said. So the responsibility is on us. By moving outside ourselves, out of the center, and by viewing our service as part of the mission of Guru and the Lord, we can move around in a mood of detachment. Then, when an allurement directly comes before us and invites us for sense gratification, we will not feel disturbed because we are not serving for our own gratification. We are not out there to experience or enjoy, but we are to make arrangements as the Lord's puppets. We are to make the arrangements, and the Lord will guide us and direct us. These are simple concepts, but quite profound. I think we'd all agree with that. We just have to take the science more seriously and move out of the way. The more that we are in the way, the more we will have to deal with obstacles based on our personality and desires. Haridas Thakur, a very pure saint in the Vaishnava tradition, is a nice example. A prostitute came to lure him away from his bhajan or worship. But he did not think in terms of the body by trying to enjoy. On the other hand, he did not feel repulsed by her or try to get rid of her through some vicious attack. He did not think, I'm a saint. Why are you bothering me? He ultimately thought of himself as a servant of God and also saw her from the same perspective. Remember, we heard the Lord says he's in everybody's heart. He saw her as a servant of the Lord who had just forgotten her position. And he understood that they both belong to the Supreme. Due to this vision, he had the strength to dodge the attack of Maya and instead transform the Maya by purifying her and by elevating her consciousness. And we can do that in our environment, in our work environment, in our school, whatever we are, if we have this knowledge and have grasped and seen God in everything, and not letting the mind pull us away or think we're better than somebody else. But if we just be our spiritual selves, we can help others get to a higher level rather than us going to a lower level. It actually takes a sufficient amount of energy to go for the sense gratification and fall prey to it. It also takes energy to fight against the attacks. However, if we just constantly try to fight, we may even create the very situation that we most want to avoid due to our constant meditation on the allurement. The thing that you spend your time and energy thinking about is the thing that's going to manifest. Because the mind accepts, oh, this is what you want. Even the Lord, if you're not thinking about Him, whatever else you're thinking about, He's saying, oh, that's what you want, as He said. He's remembrance and forgetfulness. Oh, you don't want to think about me? Okay. And then you wonder, why is this still happening to me? Why am I going through this? That's why He says you have to check what you're thinking and where you're putting your energy. So if you constantly try to fight, we might even create the very situation we most want to avoid due to our constant meditation on the allurement. We do not want to get caught up in too much fighting or avoidance. We honor the allurement, but we honor it in a higher way. It is natural that we will feel attracted to the things that our culture labels as beautiful or exciting. It varies according to people, culture, heredity, and environment. But when such stimuli are present and we are identifying with them, we will want to enjoy. However, we want to be in the world, but not of the world. The body and mind will naturally try to connect with sense gratification, but we can try to honor the stimuli as beautiful while appreciating it as an aspect of the Lord's energy. At the end of one of the workshops I gave in Ireland many years ago, one of the ladies, who was a medical doctor and also attractive, concluded the program by dancing a very special cultural dance called Bharatanatyam. Although people's minds will definitely view the dance in different ways, we can perceive the performance as a wonderful expression of culture and devotion, while seeing every gesture as an offering to God. These dances must receive special training in order to engage in this very intense spiritual dance. For instance, in India, some performers even receive the training from birth in order to dance for Lord Jagannath. Only certain families and people enact the special pastimes which go on in Vrindavan. though through dances, because they must have a sufficient level of purity. Since they are representing the spiritual connection, one should not be mundanely attracted to these performers. However, the mind can go in many directions. On one hand, the mind might think, she dances so nicely, she should be mine. Her performance is just for me. The mind can also think, what a wonderful expression of Krishna consciousness. Although people view the same performance, everyone will perceive it differently according to their consciousness. But if one identifies too mundanely with that situation, the senses can become disturbed. So it's taking our mind to a higher level and being aware of what we're thinking, mindfulness. We want to genuinely appreciate the dance, because in the spiritual world, so many great performances constantly unfold in the most expert ways. When the spiritual entities dance in the spiritual world, they dance greater than anyone else could ever dance in this realm. When they sing better than anyone else. Even their cooking or dressing far excels any material attempt. We will find so much powerful opulence in the spiritual world, because everything is at its highest level of perfection. I just find this so wonderful how he takes us. He's showing what the mundane mind can bring to our attention. But then he gives us a view and a sense of what happens in the spiritual world, because that's our ultimate goal, is to get there. So if we have that in our minds and hold that goal in mind, we won't go the mundane way. We will go to the higher level. He is extraordinary. I always said about Bhakti Tirtha Swami. A difference between the material world and the spiritual world is that in this realm, people do not perform well, and even when there are high achievements, the suffering is still present. The spiritual world is so full of activity that pure devotees engage in every activity for Krishna. How are you serving the Lord in whatever activity you're in? One Swami once addressed a similar topic in a class while speaking to some devotees who were having trouble with opulence. He pointed out that the spiritual world is very opulent. Vaikuntha is very opulent. But Krishna Loka is opulent in another way. Everything is beautiful and perfectly arranged. However, in spite of this opulence, people do not have the desire to own it for themselves. The problem arises when we try to own Krishna's opulence for our own pleasure. However, in spiritual life, the more you give up, ironically, the more the Lord gives you, until he gives you everything. He gives you everything according to your ultimate relationship with him, and gives everything that makes that relationship sweet. We have a choice. do we continue to endeavor for these temporary relationships and connections, or do we pay the price in this lifetime so that we can eternally connect with the perfect relationships and experiences? We can make this decision ourselves. We can try to enjoy on our own in this material body, which we really cannot fully do in the first place, or we can gradually try to offer everything back to God so that we can once again have all these experiences with Him. Each person makes a choice. And with that, I'm going to end this chapter, An Attitude on Gratitude. I hope those of you who have been with us, have really imbibed some of it, have applied it in your life, and just seeing how gratitude works. And as I said earlier, my own experience of looking for something to be grateful for in this personal situation I'm going through, and I did find it. And I'm thankful that I have been given what I've been given, and am now able to use it. So, we're going to be looking for a new chapter for next week. And it'll be a surprise. Because I don't know, I'm feeling I want to go back to Spiritual Warrior 3. And work from there. Solace for the heart in difficult times. And that's what's coming to me. So if you come back next week, we shall see where we are and where we're going to go. But we've gotten plenty, haven't we, from these readings, and plenty to put into practice in our daily lives. And I have an attitude of gratitude in that I thank all of you who are coming and are here. And I just wish you could share if anything happened or you used this and you saw it. But if not, that's okay. I have to have a attitude of gratitude that you're there, you heard, and you will know the results and the Lord will know the results. So, are there any comments or questions before we close? Any comments?
Bhuvan Mohan and Jagadish Das from Canada say thank you for the wonderful class and for bringing this wonderful message to us.
Oh.
And Kremlin says thank you, namaste.
Oh, Kremlin, I'm glad you made it this week. Very good. Thank you, Bhuvan and Jagadish from Canada.
Yeah.
Huh.
And Yashringa Tirtha says thank you.
Thank you for being there, Miss Yashringa Tirtha. Try to make it again. This hearing from Bhakti Tirtha Swami is really exciting. All right, that's it? All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, have a wonderful week.
And Catherine says thank you.
Who?
Catherine.
Catherine. Who's Catherine? Catherine! You just came on? She just came? She's been there all night? Where are you from, Catherine? I'd like to know, at least that much. Tell us. Oh, you have to write it? Well, they can hear me though, right? No answer? Okay, thank you for being there. And I hope you'll come back again. Hare Krishna.